Welcome back to Knights TV. It's Tommy the V of Viola sitting here with the voice of the Gwinnett Braves, the great Tony Schiavone. Tony, first off, thanks for taking out a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Tommy, we've known each other for many years. It's an honor to be here with you again on TV.
Always an honor to be in your presence. First off, watched you for many years on, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Of course, the voice of WCW Monday Nitro, Thursday Thunder. Of course, I watched all those episodes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to talk to you about this Gwinnett Braves team, and of course, your time in Charlotte with the Charlotte O's. So first off, let's just go back to last night for a minute here. Julio Teheran pitched an outstanding game, a complete game for the Braves. A top prospect in this organization. Last year, International League Pitcher of the Year, Rookie of the Year. What have you seen here out of Teheran?
Well, this year, Tommy, that was his best start that he's had for us in 2 years, and he won 15 games for us last year. But yesterday's start was his best, and I didn't think he was going to have that because it seemed to me, and I even told Matt, your radio guy, after like 2 innings, I said it's only a matter of time because they were hitting the ball very hard against him. But he settled down. He pitched very well. He has been really up and down this year. You go back to 2 starts ago, he did not perform very well. You go back 4 starts ago, he did not perform very well. He's kind of like had a good start and a bad start and a good start and a bad start. So once he gets consistent, which obviously is what he's here for, then you'll see him in the big leagues. But you know, the bloggers now are going crazy after yesterday's start. If you read all the Braves blogs, it's time to call Teheran up. Well, he's nowhere near ready right now. But yesterday was a step in the right direction because he was very good.
Right, that's a good point. I mean, he's a 21-year-old kid. I mean, that's what they have to understand is that he's still very young yet, and still have to mature a little bit. Braves could use some arms, though, right? I mean, you follow the Atlanta Braves. I'm sure could use a little help. Of course, maybe not from Teheran yet, but did see they sent Kris Medlen down, trying to make him into a starter. What'd you see out of him in his first start here?
Well, he started against the Knights, got pounded for 3 runs in the first inning. I think, though, that they like what they've seen from Kris Medlen. When Medlen was a starter here in our inaugural year in 2009, if you go back and look at those numbers, he was like leading the league in wins and ERA before he was called up to Atlanta as a starter. So he's just kind of getting back into it. Of course, he missed the entire season last year because of his Tommy John surgery the year before. Only got a couple of appearances in September. I think they're very happy with him. I think that, though, puts a little stress and a little strain on some other guys because Mike Minor's had problems. And Randall Delgado's had problems in the big leagues, and that means if Medlen goes back, maybe one of those guys will be sent down. We're not sure. And now that he's back, there's been talk that Jair Jurgens is kind of feeling left out of the picture because he wants to get back into the major leagues. Competition's good. I understand that. Jurgens has really struggled here, and it's amazing because last year he was a National League All-Star. But Medlen looks good, and we're very happy with him, and I think the Braves are too.
Right, of course, Jurgens' first half of the year last year, unbelievable. Goes to the All-Star game, is back down here this year. Would that be the strength of this organization right now? What do you think? Is it the arms? I mean, you look at some of these guys, obviously Tyler Pasnicki comes down, Chipper Jones now in the later stages of his career. Is it the arms that are the strength of this the team?
Yeah, I think it's always been that way. I think they've always put an emphasis on pitching with the Braves, and I think that's what they still feel. You know, we got the baseball draft coming up. I don't know if they're looking at a pitcher, but the last time they had a high pick, which is number 7, they picked Mike Minor a couple of years ago. So they always look at pitching first, and that's kind of what they try to build their system around. And that goes back to the days of Glavine, Smoltz, and Greg Maddux. They've always built it from there. But yeah, I think so. And like you and I talked about yesterday, they have one of the top pitching staffs in the league here. Charlotte Knights do. Indianapolis has one of the top pitching staffs in Buffalo. They're the 4 top pitching staffs in the league, and it's very simple. If you take a look at those 4 teams, they're 4 of the better teams in the league. So if you have good pitching, you're going to win ball games in the minor leagues, and that would correlate, I would think, to winning ball games in the major leagues too.
Right. Have you noticed that? It seems like more and more good pitching nowadays. Johan Santana pitching a no-hitter. We talked about maybe you didn't see it. I don't know. Okay. But you're seeing more no-hitters. You're seeing perfect games. You're seeing more good pitching performances this year. What do you attribute that to? You think is it just something with the hitters nowadays? Any thoughts on that? I
attribute it to the cheap maple bats that splinter every other swing. No, I don't. How many broken bats are we going to have? It's hard to put a finger on that. I think the emphasis in baseball and the realization, and maybe it took them a long time to get to it, is that you need to get pitchers. And you know what else you see a lot of? Big pitchers. Guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". We have a guy 6'8". They like those big guys now who can throw very hard. And again, Tom Glavine proved this: you can throw as hard as you want, but if you can't locate, you're not going to get guys out. And he was able to locate. And I think that's what we're finding now. We're finding guys who are able to locate their balls a lot better, their fastballs a lot better, and their breaking pitches. And that's why we're seeing better pitchers.
I sit here talking to you about baseball. You seem like, of course, you know the game very well. You enjoy the game. A lot of people know you of your time in wrestling, but they don't realize that you started in baseball. Right. You go all the way back to the early 80s, the Charlotte O's, when baseball was played in Charlotte, was played in downtown Charlotte. Talk to me a little bit about your time there with the Charlotte O's. What was it like? Were the fans interested in baseball back then in Charlotte? And just give me a little insight into baseball back in the early 80s in Charlotte.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I started in '81 in Greensboro, spent 1 year in the South Atlantic League, and then moved on here to Charlotte in '82. Was hired by Francis Crockett. The Crockett family, they owned the franchise back then, and they promoted wrestling, and that's how I eventually got into wrestling. In '82 was my first year in AA with Charlotte. The ballpark was Crockett Park on Magnolia Drive off of South Boulevard. It was an old wooden ballpark that eventually burned down while I was there, not while I was at the ballpark, but while I was working for the team. And it was exciting times. We had pretty good crowds. We won a Southern League championship in 1984. I still got the ring, which I'm very proud of. And I worked in the front office, and as you know, you can put a lot of time of your life into the front office in baseball. So I worked in the front office and was also the radio announcer, sold advertising and things like that. And Frances always wanted to try to get a new stadium. And that never did come about, so she eventually sold the team to George Shinn, and he moved out here. And it's amazing, people in the International League think this of the old ballpark, right, of the International League. Well, to me, it's a brand new ballpark because this is where we always wanted to be, in a brand new ballpark in Charlotte when I was with the Charlotte O's. But we had all 5 of our children here in Charlotte. My wife was good looking at that time. And so things have changed a great deal. But yeah, I talk about this franchise, and I talk about this city a lot on my broadcast because of my history here. And I got to know a lot of people in the Charlotte Mecklenburg area quite well for many years.
When you hear about the possibility of baseball coming back to Charlotte, what is that? What does that think? What do you think about when you hear that? I mean, so many people have talked about, will it be successful? Will there be more crowds? What is that? What does that come up to when you think about it? You say, baseball in Charlotte, there's a good chance. There's a lot of people in Charlotte that want to see. Is that what your thoughts are?
Yeah, I think, and I've been. I work with the Georgia Bulldog Network as well, and we were downtown 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament, played here against Washington in the opening round, and it was my really first time back to uptown Charlotte since I lived here. And with the Bobcats Arena, with the downtown rail system they've got now, it's a spectacular area. If a ballpark is built in that area, it's going to be gangbusters. It really, really is. And I think Charlotte will support it. It's a long history of baseball in this town. I mean, we see over here, we see Tony Oliva and a lot of guys, the old Charlotte Hornets back from years gone by when they were the Twins organization. It was Griffith Park back then. Some great players have come through here. And so have a long, rich tradition of baseball in Charlotte. You don't have that long, rich tradition unless you have supported your team throughout the years. And they certainly did when we were near downtown, and I think they would again if you get a stadium uptown.
That's great. That's great to hear, Tony. Before I let you go, I know you got a broadcast to do. Certainly said what I wanted to hear. Of course, great to hear from you, and of course, great to hear about Charlotte baseball. We're excited. This is a great time to be a part of the Knights, and of course, a great time, and we're all hopeful for baseball back in Charlotte. But got to talk to you about your time when you, of course, went to WCW, the voice of Monday Nitro. Wrestling, will it ever be the same? Will it ever be like it was in those 1990s when it was probably the biggest thing on TV as far as I'm concerned? Monday night was a night that you didn't miss. Will it ever be like that again?
I don't think so, and the reason I don't think so is because of what it was as far as competition is concerned back then. Nitro was going up against Raw, and it was great competition for viewership. I think those days are gone. I haven't watched it. I really don't watch it that much anymore because of my life is going 100 miles an hour And like Kenny Chesney says, living in fast forward. So I don't get to watch it anymore, but those days are gone, because back then, Tommy, you thought, man, who are we going to see on Nitro this week to come over from Raw, and vice versa. Those were great days back then. So, and I'm very very blessed and very fortunate to have been a part of that.
Miss it at all?
Miss a paycheck. But no, I really don't. I don't miss the travel. We traveled an awful lot, and I travel now only during the summer. Oh, well, I traveled during Georgia basketball and football, but that's not that bad. But we traveled all over the place, all over the country, all over the world. Two of the last trips I took at the end of 2000 one was 2 weeks in Australia, and another was a week in England. So I don't miss it. I really don't. I had a lot of friends, but baseball is always what I love. Baseball is what I came to Charlotte for back in 1982, and I ended up being a wrestling announcer. So baseball has always been my love, and I'm very glad to be here.
Well, I'm sure it worked out well for you, from baseball to wrestling, back to baseball. It's been a very successful and very interesting career for you, and we appreciate a few minutes with you today. Thank you very much.
All right, Tommy, good talking to you as always. Thanks a lot.
All right, the great Tony Schiavone, the voice of the Gwinnett Braves here on Night Fever. I'm Tommy the V of Viola. We'll see you next time right here on Knights TV.